Something that I think about with tools like GPT-3 that you mentioned is it more important to know how to use a tool or how to make a tool? Like with GPT-3, as you mentioned, like your son, he put in problems and it just spit out the answers, right? You're not really learning how to do it yourself, but you know how to use a tool that can do it for you. That applies in a lot of things. Like the reason why we make tools is to make the job easier, right? And it prevents you from having to go into the nitty-gritty of things to get to where you want. So, in your opinion, do you think it's more important as a human civilization, or like going forward, is it going to be more important to know how to make a tool or how to master using a tool?
I think, as with most questions like that, the answer is it depends. And one of the things I think it depends on is whether or not it affects people. So, for example, my car is a tool.
Right.
My car gets me from point A to point B. I can do some minor tweaks in my car, but I can't build a car, and I don't need to build a car. But what matters is that I have a mental model for how it works and it's consistent. So I know if I press the gas pedal, it's going to do this. If I press the brake, it's going to do that.
Right.
I don't have that same consistent mental model for Facebook. Like one day, if I like something, I might see more of that thing. The next day, if I like something, maybe something entirely different is going to happen. And so I think what we do need, I don't think anybody should have to have the responsibility of building everything because it's too overwhelming. And not everybody wants to do it.
Right.
But what we do need for some of these AI-based tools is the ability to form these mental models, to know what to expect and know how to use them.
Like more transparency between...
So transparency is one way, but it's not the only way, and transparency also backfires. So oftentimes people use transparency. It's like once we have that, everything is solved. It doesn't solve everything, because you can have transparency and see 700 variables that go into making something, and that's not going to help you at all. But the idea of seeing something that, that leaks, that gives you an idea. So like one example, we made a bunch of narrative interfaces on top of Facebook where people could explore. So for one interface showed you, what everything posted and what you saw. And so for the first time in their lives, like most of the people were like, wait a second, I am not seeing everything all of my friends post. And then they were like, well, why didn't I see that post? And I wish I had seen that post. And we also noticed that people, like one person was like, oh my God, they were like, I got so mad at this friend because she didn't reply to my message about my grandmother dying. And I just was convinced she saw it, but now maybe she didn't see it. And I like ruined a friendship over this. So having some of these tools that offer a reveal into not at everything, so people can maintain intellectual property,
Right.
but offering a reveal into what is happening or some possible outcomes. Like if I do this, this happens. But if I do that, that happens. Where people can start forming these mental models, I think is key. Because it's easy to make a mental model for what happens with your car because it is so consistent. And so in terms of programming, I do think that slowly, programming and building things like that is going to become a literacy, similar to the way that writing and arithmetic have become core literacies.
Right.
I do think that computing in some form or other is going to become a form of literacy. And I do think it's important that people have a sense of it. But I don't think people have to create like super, super complex things. But I do think people need to have the literacy to understand them.